This is Gemara Beitzah Daf Lamed Zayin. All the learning for this week, the week of October 7th, which is Shava Brachas. Shava Brachas for one of the members of the Chabura's daughter of Shimi Carniel. He's celebrating a wonderful Simcha. His daughter's marriage last night to Tzipa Devaira, Debbie Carniel, Mirz Hashem, the Chassan Yitzchak Gedalia, and Debbie should bring up their bayis, Oila Yafa, there be a bayis, Neman be Israel. On the learning of this week, the week of Shava Brachas, what greater schos for them to start off their marriage, the entire Chabura should be learning Liz Chusam, should be a schos for that simcha, as well as we can't forget to Olachayim Shal Yizmin and Yefeder Shalom and Yutem and Vegachayim Mitzay Sham Sim Reiz Azar Bas Knendel Ita Basiyam As Chaysay Yisrael Mendel the Brats in the Shalei Shomaz Naomi Bashavig Shirchan Shmo Ben Dindel Daniel Ben Khan Reiz Mechay Basin Librachas Tav Musa Dinanim Shin Mendel Sim Veg Verdun Chol Zon Zel Huva Rivka Bas Vashav and Atal Sim Michal Esther Besay Shar Choli Yisrael Zol Shchil Yisrael Chaim in the Version Miriam Bas is a Gidol Shanaz Bas Shanamakal Yomorcha Ben Double Shendel as a Gidol Bas Double Shendel. They should have a quick Shidduch Mirz Hashem. Soon enough we can learn on the week of their Shava Brachas as well. We pick it up on the bottom of Lamid Vav Amid Beis. We finished the Mishnah at the end of yesterday's year. Welcome back to Yerushalayim. I'm sure the sound quality and everything will be a drop better here from our studio home in Yerushalayim. Let's pick it up on the bottom of Lamid Vav Amid Beis. The Gemara says the Gemara La'ilin Be'ilan. You're not allowed to ascend a tree. You're not allowed to go up a tree on Yantif. What's the reason? Gezir Shemiyitzla is a famous Gezira. We're afraid you're going to pull off a branch. Says the Gemara, and similarly, you're not allowed to ride on an animal. You might leave the Tchum. Says the Gemara, for the fact that we're making Gezira, you might leave the Tchum shows us what? Shema Mina, 10 lines to the bottom. Tchumim, Daraisa. Must be Tchum is Daraisa, as Rashi eloquently points out. What's the reason for making a Gezira? Because of it, it must be that the din itself is a din daraisa. Because of the din daraisa, we're making a din darabanan that you can't go ride on the animal. Says the Gemara. 1 second. El Gezira shemiyachtich zemaira. Excuse me, so the Gemara says no. Really, it's not a deraisa. So if it's not a deraisa, why are you not allowed to ride on the animal? You might come rip off a branch to smack the animal as you are going. In the last case that we said, you're not allowed to swim on Yantiv. What is the reason? We're afraid you're going to make a raft, one of them perhaps more interesting geziras. However, of course, we know once a gezira is made, it is not rescinded, and that is the reason why one cannot go swimming. A classic question whether one could go swimming on Yantif, not necessarily even Shabbos. It's Yantif, people say. Says the Gemara, says that the halacha absolutely not. For what reason? There's a gezira derabbanan, and you might come to make a raft amongst other geziras. Says that the Gemara further, you can't clap, you can't slap, you can't dance. What's the reason? Again, very famous gezira shemitaki klishir. You might come to fix an instrument. Once you're the dancing, clapping, music instrument situation, we're afraid you're going to come to make a different instrument. Which, of course, this stands as well. Now, what is the gather? What are the parameters of clapping and dancing? You know, the little shuffle in a circle. Most places can say it's not called a dance. It's a simple clap, it's a simple bang on the table. Perhaps it's just keeping a beat. That's not a full instrument. Maybe that's more full go all out banging on the table. Misha mitzvah, a place that they have a minhag to dance on Kabbalah Shabbos, etc. It's allowed. Different minhagim, but this is the reason it would be forbidden. For why? Because you might come to fix an instrument. Says the Gemara Beilin Misha Mishas Lo Danim. So we continued in the Mishnah, and actually we shouldn't say continued. This is really the first part of the Mishnah, that what was a rishos? Rishos were things which are optional to do. There's a mitzvah element to them, but they're also on Yantif. So what was Misham? Rishos lo danim, you're not allowed to you're not allowed to judge a court case. Says the Gemara. 1 second, but mitzvah gavid. Why not? You're doing a mitzvah. Answers the Gemara. There was someone greater than you, so you yourself have no mitzvah to do it because there's someone else that's a greater Talmid Chacham than you, and he could do the mitzvah. As Rashi, Now we'll just point out, as you can see on the side over here, there's large traces of mitzvah gavid. Not so simple exactly what is going on over here. What is whether there is a mitzvah or not? That is the discussion here in Taisvis. Says the Gemara. Actually, I apologize. That's on the next Gemara, but it's really the same discussion. V'loi mekachin, you can't get married. Same question about mitzvah kavod. You're doing a mitzvah. Loi tzricha answers the Gemara that what's the reason why you're not allowed to get married onto Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph today's daf. This like Isha Ubanev, someone who already is married, someone who already was married, I should say, and he has children already, and therefore. Well, either it was a Mizvana Gemara, you're allowed to have two wives, so it could be he was married, or he is married, or he was married, and he had children, he was Makayim, the mitzvah, there's no Iker mitzvah. Now Rashi over here, very time sensitive, everyone knows the first mitzvah, or according to one opinion, the first mitzvah, the Torah, Pru, or Vu, to have children. Rashi over here points out, what does it mean having children? It's two males according to Beis Shammai, a male and a female according to Beis Hillel. And after that, you no longer have a mitzvah. Rashi points out the Gemara in Yavamas. However, Rashi points out, there's always a little bit of a mitzvah each and every child for numerous different reasons. Rashi quotes a pasuk that is the basics of the mitzvah Pru Revu. Says the Gemara, you're allowed to do chalitza, nor you're allowed to do yibam. Says the Gemara the same question about mitzvah kavod. Why not? You're doing a mitzvah. There's an older brother who mitzvah begadol liyabim, and the oldest brother is one supposed to do yibam and not you. What are the reason all these cases you're not allowed to do all these different things? We asked it should be a mitzvah. Why can't you judge? Why can't you get married? Why can't you etc. do chalitza, do yibam? Says Gemara, but why not? The reason is we're afraid you're judging a court case, you're middle of getting married, etc. We're afraid Shem Yichtav, you're going to write one of the many gezeras that were made in Chazal in Hilchas Shabbos, Yontif by extension, of writing how chomer the Isser Ksiva is. So many gezeras were made. Patterned after that. Says the Gemara 4 lines down, mitzvah. The following are a mitzvah and they're still asar on Yantiv. What's the reasons there? These have a stigma of buying and selling, and therefore you're giving your value, you're giving your eirach to the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore it is not allowed. And you're not allowed to separate chumas and ma'isros. Says the Gemara Pshita. Tani Rav Yosef, you know what the chiddush is? The novelty is lisna lekayin by beyond to give to the kohen on that day. So you would think Vani Mili Peir the Tvila that me'atmal. Says the Gemara, but that's only if the payers were yesterday able to be given to the kohen. But indeed, I will Peir the Tvila inna. But something that became devil today on Yontif, what's the case? Kohen Isa, like we've seen in the beginning of the Masechta, like you make a dough, you make challah. Now you have to separate the challah and give it to a kohen bisman and Beis HaMikdash. And that happens right now. And you're allowed to give it to him even on Yontif. The only reason you can't do it in the Mishnah, the reason why you can't give Chubas and Maisris, is even the Chiddush is even if you want to give it to the Kohen. But the Gemara speaks out, but it's only Asar if you could have done it before Yontif. But in a case where the obligation began on Yontif, for example, you made a dough, you have the Chiyah of the obligation to take off Challah right now, then you would yes be allowed to give it to the Kohen, even on Yantif. Continues the Gemara of Ahani Misham Rishas Ika, Misham Shavos Laka. 1 second. How do you explain the basic case of the Mishnah? These are Rishas. These are optional, but they're also a mitzvah and they're also an Issa D'Rabbanan. Meaning the categories in the Mishnah seemingly cross lines. Ahani Misham Mitzvah Ika, Misham Shavos Laka. Each one seemingly is in the next category. Amar Rav Yitzchak Lo Mi Bayi Kamar. No, you have to read the Mishnah. It's one flowing sentence. Lo Mi Bayi Shavos Grei Das. Not only something which is a proper Issa D'Rabbanan, you cannot do any Yantif. Elafilu Shvos, Dershos, not Dershos, Namias. Even if it's a D'Rabbanan of a Rishos, of an optional mitzvah, it's still forbidden. And furthermore, we continue. V'lamai Shvos Dershos Dasa, not only a Shvos of an optional item, which is us. Elafilu Shvos, the mitzvah, the highest level to proper mitzvah. Still, Nami Aser. That is how the Mishnah reads each case, adding on to the case before it. And the Mishnah continued and it concluded, I should say, and said in the last narrow line, this whole list, the litany in the Mishnah is all in Yantif. But the Mishnah said, There's no difference between Shabbos and Yantif, rather only Oichal Nefesh. Says the Gemara of Raminu, I'll ask you a stira contradiction. The previous Mishnah is Mashilin Derech Haruba B'Yantif Avlo B'Shabbos. You're allowed to lower those fruit through the skylight when? On Yantif, not Shabbos. So we see another difference between Shabbos and Yantif. Amar Rabbi Yosef Lo Kasha Rav Lazar Rav Yeshua. The time went to the Beitzah. Oh, he said explanation of a little bar. Case we spoke about recently. We have a mother and the son that are in a pit. They're both going to die, and the halacha is you're not allowed to shecht a mother and its child on the same day. So what do you do? Because they're both in the pit. If you leave them both there, we're afraid they're both going to die. You're not going to eat them. So take up the first animal with the mindset you're going to shecht it. And actually shecht it. What about the second animal? You can't shecht it today. So it says Rav Elazar, leave it in the pit. You feed it where it is. Give it its parnasa. Feed the animal in the pit so that it doesn't die. The opinion of Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Shua Imer, who's what we quoted recently, Males Arisha in Amanasa Shechtai. Take out the first animal with the mindset, I'm going to shech this animal. Ve'inoi Shechtai, but pull shtick. Don't shech the animal. Then take out the second animal. And now you have two animals in front of you. Rata Zeh Shachad, and you're allowed to shech either one. So says the Gemara, that's going to be the difference, whether you're going to be allowed to lower the food from the skylight is going to be the same debate, whether we're going to the opinion of Rav Elazar or we are going with Rav Yeshua. Rav Yeshua is more makel when it comes to Hefsid, and whereas Rav Eliezer is more machmir. Similarly, Rav Yeshua is going to be the one, that's how we spoke about the Gemara 2 days ago, Rav Yeshua is the one that allows you to lower the fruit, because he's more mekel, but Rav Eliezer will be machmir, so Rav Eliezer will be our Tana of our Mishnah, that says the only difference is food properties. Amar le Abaya, El Mimai, Dilma Adkan Lukam Rav Eliezer Asim El Dav Shebe Bernelsa. How do you know the two cases are similar? Maybe when the two animals fell in a pit, the reason he lets you pull shtick and pull them both up, the reason he doesn't let you pull shtick and bring both up, you can feed the animal in the pit and you'll save the animal. But in our case, maybe you would agree that in our case you would be allowed to lower the fruits from the skylight. Maybe by there, the two animals, there's a potential harama, there's a potential cunningness you could pull. So not necessarily, says the Gemara, can we make it dependent upon that machlokes. Rather, a different way of learning. On Yontif, you're not allowed to carry a cut to the Sefer Torah or a lulav into Shus Rabim, but of course, Beisil Matirin, which of course is how we paskin, we allow it to carry, let's say, for the sake of mitzvah and Sarach Yantif in Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, it's going to be the same machlokes as whether we're going to be more mekel, says Beis Hillel, or more machmir. Says the Gemara one more time. Maybe there's a difference to properly moving something and between when it comes to a hitzah. Maybe when it comes to moving something, when it comes to hitzah, that's a dindar ha'isa. When it comes to moving something, comes to taking the items off the roof, that's only a dindar abanan. Says the Gemara, the famous teretz, atu teltel after chaitzai. This is one of the reasons of the isra of muksa, isra of teltel, is because you're going to come to carry it out. So therefore, says the Gemara, the two are one and the same. So we could indeed answer the question of that Mishnah over there by lowering the fruit from the skylight will only be the opinion of Beis Hillel, which is more lenient, which will not necessarily contradict our Mishnah with regard to that Ein Bein. There's no difference between Shabbos and Yantiv Elo Yichal Nefesh both had. Says the Mishnah. Now we're going to go into the halachas of Tchum. A lot of this should hopefully, for those who've been with us from the beginning of the daf, sound familiar. These are Gemaras and Eruvin primarily, and the basic halach of Tchum we all know is that you're only allowed to carry within your city and 2,000 amos past your city's mark. That is the area of the Tchum. Unless you were Kaina Shvisa, you made your quote-unquote dwelling place somewhere far out, 2,000 amos out, then you can extend it another 2,000 amos out. And when is Tchum Chal? When does it determine where your place is on Shabbos? During Bein Hashema kosher is Friday night. Says the Gemara, an animal, a utensil, what tchum does it have? It's not a person. So its tchum goes by the owner. So my jacket, my tie goes by my tchum. So my tchum ends in a certain place, and so in borrowed my tie, he could only wear my tie up till that place. Past that place, it's out of the tchum. And there's an issue not only to go out of the tchum, but to bring items out of the tchum. Similarly, says the Mishnah, if you give your animal to your child or your shepherd, it goes by the owner. If you have utensils which are miyuchad for one of the brothers Shevabayis in a house, for a certain brother he has his items, it goes by his feet. Then if he doesn't have a specific person, they use by everyone in the household indiscriminately, then they go wherever they could go, each brother could go according to his tchum. And which, by the way, is a point that there are Paiskim that point out that if one brother owns an article of clothing and he's in Eretz Yisrael, his article of clothing will go by him in Eretz Yisrael. So even if his brother were to borrow it, his brother would not be allowed to wear it out of the house because it will be ostensibly going out of the tchum. Perhaps that's the case over here in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that the achim shebabayis, that the brothers in the house, it goes by the one that's miyuchad for him. Perhaps there are those who maybe want to argue that if a brother goes out and a brother is in Eretz Yisrael for Azman, all his items perhaps are automatically nisbatel, automatically dispersed, and anyone in the household would be allowed to wear them because they're no longer his miyuchadik items as long as he lets others use it. Says the Mishnah, Shol kli mechaveru, if someone borrows a utensil from his friend, me erev yantiv and erev yantiv karagli hashoyel, goes by the borrower, because you took an erev yantiv, now it goes by your feet, your tchum. Be yantiv, then karagli hamashal, the one who lent. And similarly, a woman that borrows from his friend spices, water, and flour for her bread. So now she's making a challah, but in the challah are ingredients of someone else. The tchum of that challah, fascinating, doesn't only go by this woman, it goes by the other people as well. Rav Yehuda says, no, if it's water is nothing. There's no substantiability to it, and therefore it would not go necessarily by the two of them. And that's the Mishnah. And now we're going to expand upon these halachas. The halacha of tchum, and perhaps eye-opening halacha that tchum is not necessarily just by you, but by the items that you're carrying, the items that you have. Says the Gemara Masnisan, turning over to Amazayin Mabeis, Deloi ki Rav Daisa. The Mishnah is not like Rav Daisa. Why not? Titani Rav Daisa Omer, Vamila Abashal Omer, and some say Abashal. Halukech be'ima mechaver, you buy an animal, me'erev yantif, afal pi shaloi masr loi ela biyantif. So you own the animal in Erev Yantif. So according to you own the animal in Erev Yantif, but you did not make a kinyan on the animal till Yantif. You did not take the animal only until Yantif. It goes by the purchaser. And that is the opinion of Rav Daisa, some say Abashal. If someone gives an animal to a shepherd, you only give it to him on Yantif itself. It goes by the shepherd. So says the Gemara, our Mishnah is seemingly like Rav Daisa, not like Rav Daisa, because our Mishnah says it goes when you take the animal, and if you take the animal first on Yantif, if you take the item first on Yantif, then it goes by you now. Whereas it seems clearly here in the Mishnah, if you purchased it on Erev Yantif, even though you did not take it till Yantif proper, it still goes by the purchaser. So seemingly the Mishnah is not like Rav Daisa. Explains the Gemara 6 lines down. If you do Rav Daisa, like Kasha, it's not a contradiction. When there's one raya, when there's only one shepherd, like the case of the Beitzah, Rav Daisa, the whole town is one shepherd, then everyone knows the animal's going to him. Then it's clear, even if he doesn't take it to the Yantif, he'll go by that shepherd. But in the Mishnah, where there's more than one raya, more than one shepherd, you don't know necessarily which one's going to get it. Therefore, it will not go by the shepherd unless he took it before Yantif. Says the Gemara, this is precise. So you see clearly there's a choice you're going to give the animal to in the Mishnah. So in the Mishnah, where there's a choice, you have to give it before Yantif. In the Beitzah, where there's no choice, you can even give it on Yantif. He passes like Rav Daisa. Ask the Gemara, passes like the Stam Mishnah. What's the Stam Mishnah? So we see clearly it goes by the owner, not like Rav Daisa that says it goes by the purchaser. And not like the bride, not like the shepherd. Valav Kimna answers the Gemara just like we answered a moment ago. In the same direct. If there's one shepherd, he knows for sure going to go to him. So everyone will agree that Tchum is his. If there's two shepherds, then not. Taner Rabbanan says the Gemara. There's two people borrowed one shirt before Yantif in a partnership. Says the Gemara, the reason they borrow this shirt, we borrow a jacket, and I tell my friend, I'll wear the jacket to Shachris, you'll wear it to Mincha. We plan on splitting up the usage of the jacket. But me and my friend daven in different shuls. So I made an Erev that I want to walk with the jacket to the north. He made an Erev, he wants to go to the jacket to the south. The one I made an Erev up north. How far up north could I go? Only as far as the Tchum down south lets me. Very simply, if there's two people, and I make an Erev this way, and he makes an Erev this way, I could go 2,000 amos over here, and he could go 2,000 amos over here. But since we are a joint partnership, therefore we have to each account for the other one. So I'm only going to be allowed to go as far as his Erev allows me to go within the pi circle, because each one cannot go further than the other one. But let's say they establish smack in the middle, as that you can't move. Meaning, if this is here's the middle. Here's 2,000 amos as I went, and here's 2,000 amos he went. So our tchums only go right here. They don't overlap at all. If our 2,000 amos don't overlap at all, so how far can we go past here? Nowhere, because here's the jacket, neither one can take it. If each one of us only, let's say, went out 1,000 amos, then we could go another 1,000 amos based off of the other one's chum. If not. And that's the fascinating case that the chum you have to take in. If your partnership, it goes by both of you. Itmar says, the Gemara in the first white line, two people bought a barrel or an animal if a partnership. Rav Amar, Chavis Mutaris Be'ema Asura, Shmuel Amar Chavis Nami Asura. Says Rav, the chavis is mutaris. The barrel, the wine is permitted. Each one can carry as much as you want in his own tchum, whereas the animal you cannot. And the animal only goes by their common tchum. Again, there's two people. The overlapping part of the tchum, that's where the animal could go. The wine could go as far as each one wants. Shmuel says, no, everything is forbidden. Says the Gemara, Micah of Rav. What does Rav mean when Rav taught us that the chavis, the wine, is going to be mutter, each one can carry it as much as you want? If Rav holds yesh breira, we say that we retroactively clarify. So if me and you purchase a barrel of wine, so says Rav yesh breira. So when I go draw a cup of wine, that wine is retroactively clarified. It was always mine, so it goes by my tchum. If you go to get a cup of wine, retroactively you know it's yours, it goes by your tchum. But if that's true, says the Gemara, the same thing should be by an animal. The animal should be the same thing, yesh breira, and each one of us can go as far as we need. So how does Rav split between the barrel and the animal? A very simple question. Answers the Gemara, Really, Rav holds yesh breira. So why by the animal not? Vishanya behema, an animal is different. An animal at some level draws nourishment, literally, from each of the boundaries. The animal is a living entity. So when Shabbos, when Yontif began, when that snapshot is taken being Hashmashais, the animal is being used, quote unquote, by both parties, and therefore it can't go out of their common tchum. When it comes to an inanimate object like wine, yesh breira, retroactively, that was my cup, that was your cup, we each can take our own tchum. But when it comes to an animal, since the animal is a living entity, the animal at some level draws nutrients from each part of the tchum, so only could go to the joint tchum. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Amila Rav Kana Ravasi the Rav. Lisser Muksa Loichashu is Tchum and Chashu. I don't understand. When it comes to Muksa, what do we say? We have two people owning one animal. We don't say that since my portion can't be used by you and your portion can't be used by me, the animal is Muksa. We don't say that. We say it's a joint ownership, and I could use the animal like you could use the animal. So why, when it comes to the Tchum, does it bother us? Why, when it comes to the Tchum, are we saying it's a living entity and the animal draws nourishment from each one of the Tchum? I don't understand. It also is muksa in the same way, and it's not muksa. Says the Gemara, Shasik Rav is silent. Says the Gemara, my Aviyalah. So what's the maskana? We're going to conclude with this. Rav Haisha Aimer Yesh Breira, Rav Yechlan Amar Ein Breira. V'Savar Rav Haisha Yesh Breira. So basically, we're coming out that it's a machlekes whether we're going to hold the breira. Does Rav Hoshea really hold the breira? But tonight we learned in the Mishnah, Ameis b'bayis loy upsacham arbe. If we have a dead body in the house, so we know the tumah permeates everywhere and throughout all the doorways. Psacham arbe, many entrances, kula and tameim, they're all tummy because you don't know which one the mace is going to be carried through. When the mace is carried through, it makes it tummy. Niftach achmem, you open one door, hu tamei v'kulan tarim. Just that door is tummy. The rest are tar. Chishev lo itzik achmen. If you thought about opening one, oy b'chaloin or a window, it saves all the openings. Says Beishamay, there's no such thing as breira. You had to have had it in mind before the mace died. Even when the mace died. So now how does this play into our machlekes with Rav Hoshea? Says Rav Hoshea, there's no discussion that it could go retroactively because there's no breira. But we just said a moment ago that Rav Hoshea says yesh breira, contradiction. Epoch, switch it around. Rav Hoshea in breira, Rav Yochanan Amar yesh breira, and of course now the Gemara is going to flip the tables and say immediately Rav Yochanan breira, does Rav Yochanan really hold a breira? And we're going to go into another case which we'll pick up tomorrow in Beitzah Hashem.